Hello and welcome to Ukrainian Flames, a special project by Ukraine Crisis Media-Center, NGO Euro-Atlantic Course and Analytical Center of Ukrainian Catholic University. My name is Victoria Zabayan. I'm head of the UCMC Press Center. Please like, share this video and subscribe our channel to stay tuned. The world's political community has begun the process of sanctioning Russia for its wrongdoing against Ukraine. In fact, a new model of political order is being created today, where Russia is given a place on the political and economic periphery of the world. One more important dimension of Russian isolation is diplomatic one. In particular, participation of Russia in different international organizations. This is what we are going to talk about today. Volodymyr Ohryzko, former Minister for Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, emphasizes that a lot of efforts have been already done to close Russia from the whole civilized world, but it's still not enough. Participation of Russia in international bodies is unacceptable in the context of all the atrocities that Russian invaders do in Ukraine, in the very center of Europe.
Russian war against Ukraine has many dimensions. I would like to draw your attention to diplomatic one. What is important for any country abroad? First of all, its positive image. This is what Ukraine has now without any exceptions, because we are fighting for our common democratic values: freedom, independence, right to choose our future. That is why Ukrainians have been supported worldwide. But what about Russia? It is absolutely different picture. In fact, Russia is today an international pariah because this country pursues aggressive policy, committed war crimes and crimes against humanity. We all have seen terrible pictures of the Russian hostilities in many Ukrainian cities and villages. Russian army proved that this is army of serial killers, rapists, and looters. The international community has no intention to have something in common with this country. That is why Russia is pulled out from many international bodies. These are, for example, Council of Europe, UN Human Rights Commission, Danube Commission, UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, etc., etc. UNESCO World Heritage Committee rejected to organize its meeting in Russian Kazan. Russian sportsmen and cultural figures are boycotted by many international organizations. These are only some examples. But this is, of course, not enough. We all should raise our voices to stop Russian membership in other important international bodies, like the United Nations, UNESCO, UNIDO, IAEA, OSCE, etc., etc. Because Russia has violated the fundamental principles of international law and became the main global threat. Russians are threatening us with their nuclear weapons. They are capturing nuclear power plants. They are destroying world cultural heritage. This country, in my view, should be isolated and punished. Russians should pay for their crimes.
And now we're ready to show you a comment from Valeriy, ambassador of Ukraine to the United States and chairman of the UCMC board. Let's take a look.
Dear friends, Ukraine's armed forces and the Ukrainian people continue to fight against Russian invaders, defending not only sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, but also international law and international rules. Instead, Russia is destroying the existing world order and disregarding any internationally approved norms. There are many appeals to initiate proceedings to condemn Russia's war crimes and crimes against humanity. The United States is considering including Russia on its short list of sponsor of terrorism. The other country also considering the same measure. In such circumstances, effective measures are urgently needed to prevent Russia from blocking decisions in international organizations. Those organizations that are essentially unable to work to counter Russia's illegal actions must expel it or suspend its membership. As an example, the Black Sea Economic Cooperation cannot properly perform the functions of ensuring trade in the Black Sea region in a situation where Russia is blocking Ukrainian seaports. The further consideration of Black Sea Trade and Development Bank projects in the amount of 1.5 billion euros in loans for infrastructure projects in Russia is also seems inappropriate. The Black Sea Economic Cooperation must either exclude Russia or reform itself. This applies to many other international organizations where Russia must lose its membership or its ability to block important decisions during the war against Ukraine. Russia's international isolation must be part of international community pressure, which aims to stop the war in the center of European continent and ensure the aggressor's responsibility. We must do it. We must do it now.
Volodymyr Yelchenko, who was a permanent representative of Ukraine to the UN, says that diplomats and experts today ask question whether the role of Russia in UN and UN Security Council is legitimate. Let's listen to him in the following video.
As Ukraine continues its multidimensional military and diplomatic fight against the ongoing Russian aggression, one pertinent question is being raised by more and more politicians and international experts. Whether Russia was indeed the true and legitimate successor to the former Soviet Union's United Nations seat, and in particular, the powerful veto-yielding permanent seat on the UN Security Council. The UN Charter defines 5 permanent members of the Security Council: Republic of China, France, Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, United Kingdom, and the United States. There is no such member as Russian Federation there. In fact, those familiar with the UN history will recall that back in 1971, the UN General Assembly passed resolution which expelled Republic of China, what is now Taiwan, and essentially transferred control of China's place in the United Nations to Beijing. But no such decision has been made in relation to Russia, taking the place of the Soviet Union in 1991. Russian representatives like to refer very often to the decision of the Commonwealth of Independent States, which supported the claim of Russian Federation to continue the membership of the Soviet Union. But, first of all, that decision was not supported by all CIS countries. For example, Georgia didn't sign it, and Ukraine signed but never ratified the CIS Charter. And second, the mentioned CIS decision was only sent in the letter to the UN Secretary General, informing him of the fact. It was never debated or considered or taken for action or voted on in the UN framework. Moreover, in the UN archives, you can find the memo signed by then UN Legal Counsel, who, in December 1991, unambiguously advised to the Secretary General that even in such case, Russia should have fulfilled all relevant requirements that is formally applied for reapplication to the UN as a new member. Russia has never done it, unlike the states that were born following the collapse and the most recent examples of the former Yugoslavia or Czechoslovakia. I do realize that this problem is far from being purely legal. It's much more complicated and highly political. But let me, in the end, ask you another question. Do you think that after unleashing unprovoked aggression against Ukraine, and having violated every single provision of the UN Charter by committing unseen atrocities against Ukrainians, Russia really deserves to remain the member of the United Nations. Let us give justice a chance. Thank you for your attention.
Oleksandr Pavlichenko, director of Ukrainian Helsinki Human Rights Union, says that it looks very strange when aggressor state is still member of international organizations which define democracy and freedom as their core values. Let's take a look.
I'm Oleksandr Pavlichenko, executive director of Ukrainian Helsinki Human Rights Union. Our organization works on the documentation of human rights violations, war crimes, since the beginning of the war that started in 2014 and was started by Russia with the annexation of Crimea and the military actions in the Donetsk-Lugansk regions. We have the number of the cases that were documented with the victims that were also interviewed and they received apropos the legal assistance from our organization, and with the proper investigation on domestic level and possible attempt to bring to the justice the perpetrators on domestic level. And finally, the cases were prepared and sent to the international institutions like European Court of Human Rights and with the submissions to the International Criminal Court with indication of the violation of properly international humanitarian law and international human rights law. We know the name of criminal and name of perpetrator who committed the crimes. This is the Russian Federation. And the Russian Federation may not be the proper member with the full-fledged mandate inside of the organizations that are designated to promote and to protect human rights. The Council of Europe, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the United Nations institutions like Security Council, that should consider the proper protection of human rights in the proper countries, member states of the organizations. They should be based in their work on the respect of their values, the values of rule of law, democracy, human rights protection. When the members doesn't correspond to these values, they should be excluded from the processes of decision, from the consideration of the cases with violations, especially when they are the perpetrators of these violations, when they have the possibility to veto, when they have the possibility to influence on the decision and on the resolution of the situation. Thus, we may address the appeal to consider the mandate of Russian Federation and the member of the Organization for the Security and the Cooperation in Europe as a non-proper one. And as a good example, we may bring the Council of Europe that postponed the membership of the Russian Federation in all its bodies like Committee of Ministers, Parliamentary Assembly, Congress of Local and Regional Authorities of the Council of Europe. And it might be the proper example how the organization should deal with the perpetrators of its core values.
You've been watching Ukrainian Flames, a special project by Ukraine Crisis Media Center, NGO Euro-Atlantic Course and Analytical Center of Ukrainian Catholic University. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe our channel. In description, you can find the information about how personally you can help Ukrainian army and Ukrainian people against Russian aggression. Everything is gonna be Ukraine.